novel is where is a young fruit, but in this case, I don't think they ever ripen. I think that's the issue.
Today in Hebrew, in Bor,
Right. So let's see. So my novlot, Rabbi Zera of Rabbi Lo, Rabbi Zera Rabbi Lo, Chad Omar, Bushle Kamra. One says that it means Bushle Kamra. In other words, the Kamar is the Aramaic for Chama. So Bushle Kamra means burnt by the sun. In other words, the sun made them into raisins before they fully grow. The sun was a very hot day. They were at the top of the vine, and the sun shriveled them. Kamra means sun. It's Aramaic, okay? V'chadam are tamri dezeka. Others say they are wind dates. In other words, the dates they grow in clusters, and sometimes when the wind blows very hard, some of the young dates on the outside of the cluster blow off, and they never fully ripen. So either the sun shrivels them before the grapes ripen, or the wind blows the dates off, so they're not fully ripe and not fully edible. You can eat them. So you say shahako because they're not fully ripe. They're not properly edible. Tanan, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol shul min kulola ei mavarchem olav. So he said about all these things, about the novlot and about the vinegar, that anything that comes as the result of a curse, of a bad thing, we don't say a bracha on. And locusts are a curse. If your grapes don't ripen, it's a curse.
You mean it was eaten by the locusts, okay?
Right, no, if they don't ripen, if they're not good, if food spoils, that's a curse, it's a bad thing. So anything that's a result of a bad thing, you don't say a bracha. We don't follow that. So the bishleim, that makes sense. The mandama bushle kamra, that they are burned by the sun. Hainu dekorile, that's why you call novlot, which are the grapes burnt by the sun, min klola, a species from a curse. Why do we say it's a curse when the wind blows it off? So answers the Gemara, Ashara, Rabbi Yehuda is talking about the rest of them. The wind blowing grapes off dates off is not a curse, it's a regular occupational hazard. Ikodamri, others say differently. Bishlei Madam Amr Bushlei Kamra Haina, that you say Shahako. But according to the Manda Omar, Tamri Dezaker, they are the dates the wind blow off. Why Shahako? Very prates, you should say very prates, because the proper dates. But really, everyone agrees that novlos in the Mishnah means the sunburnt grapes. Where do they? Oh, they're not, because they never ripened. Rozhenkas are ripe grapes that here the sun killed them before they could ripen, so they're bitter. So, but no, they didn't develop the sugar yet, because the sugar develops at the end. So where they argue, not in our Mishnah, they argue about novlos tamra. What does it mean, the novlot of the date palm, specifically? So they're arguing about a different Mishnah. The time we learned to Mishnah, Kalanja, Demai is stuff that you have that we're not sure if Truma Meiser was taken. So we're lenient with certain things, and they are Hashitin, Harimin, Vazradin. These are all different fruits that are not normally cultivated. B'no Shuach, B'no Shikma, types of figs that are wild and not cultivated. Gufiv and Nitzba, and Novlos Tamra, and the Novlos Tamra. So the question is, do we mean that the sun burnt them, or do we mean that they were blown off by the wind? Well, that you don't have to worry about Demai with that.
Why is it even a difference?
No, because if you hold it means burnt by the sun, so then dates blown by the wind, you do have to worry about Demai. You do have to take Truma and Maisa from them. Okay. But if it means blown by the wind, then if the wind blows them off, you don't have to take Truma and Maisa from them if you're not sure. Shitin, what is Shitin? Rabbi Chana says they're a type of wild fig that doesn't taste very good. Rimin, what are rimin? So rimin, he says, is kande, and how does he translate kande? He gives
Lote,
the Aramaic name.
Lote. Lote?
Yeah, it's a kind of herb. Uzradin, tulsi. What are tulsis?
Crab apples.
Right. So these are all wild fruits that aren't really very good. So you don't have to worry about demai with them. But no shuach. They're white figs that don't taste particularly good.
All of these, we don't say anything.
No, you say no. This is not about brachas. This is about demai. This is about if you're not sure Truma Maisa was taken, you have to take Truma Maisa. Since they're not usually cultivated, we don't worry about the tithes.
Okay, but what if somebody eats them?
They would say so. So if they're normally eaten as a fruit, you'd say, hey, so people don't normally eat them. You'd say shahak. Bano shikma Amar Rabba Barba Amar Rabba Barachon Rabbi Duvli. He says they're duvli. What are duvli? So I don't have the English in front.
Fruit of the sycamore tree.
Right. So sycamore fruit, which again is not normally eaten except if you're very hungry. Gufnin shili gufni. They're what's left over. The late fall grapes, which never fully ripen. Right. Nitzpa percha. Nitzpa is a type of flower, and novelos tomorrow. They're percha is no. I'm sorry, Nitzpa percha novelos tomorrow. They are the dates that the wind blows off before they ripen. So novelos tamar below representative. One says bushli kamra, v'chadama tamri dezeka. Some says that the sun burnt the dates. Others say it's the. So Mishmushli Karma, we say that it's they're lenient, that if you're not sure, they're potter. But if they're definitely not taken meiser, chayev they have to give. But the one who says that the tamrid dezeka, the wind blew them away, vada and chayev, why would you be liable to give hefkrin in when anything which is they're ownerless? And anything ownerless, you don't have to give tithes from. Hachamaskin and shasim geiren. Where you gathered them up and made the pile. Once you make a pile, they're no longer hefker. They're considered to be something that you cultivated. 1 minute, Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, so when the poor people take the leftover things in the field, they don't have to give truma and ma'aser. But if a poor person was very assiduous and made a big pile of it, and made in a sort of an official pile that he's selling from, then they become established for meiser. Now, ikadamri, other people read this differently. They're the wind things. That's what it calls it novla, and it calls it. And over here, meaning of 41a, we call it dates. But the one who says that they bushli kamra, they're boiled by the sun. 41a? Yeah. Why don't we learn both? Why don't we just call them both novelos tamra or call them both novelot? In other words, why do we make a distinction between the novelot of the date palm and regular novelot? Kasha, you have a question. In other words, if it's all talking about dates, we should either all call it dates, or since we know we're talking about dates, not call it dates. So this is a language question, and we're left with a question. We don't know why the Mishnah and the Braita use the language that they used.
So we end with a kasha?
Yeah, we're left with it. We don't know why it was written this way. Go ahead.
We did learn not too long ago all about what bracha you make on stuff. But we never learned about all of these things. Why wasn't that taught there, right there? What kind of bracha do you do if you eat the noblod and all this?
Right. So the answer is that it depends. If people, this is not, we've gone away from this question. So the answer is if they're not usually eaten except in a pinch, then you say shahakol.
Okay.
If people usually eat them on a regular basis, you say ha'etz. So, for example, crab apples. In some places, people, eat crab apples all the time. In some places, they don't. Yeah, you can eat them. Some people,
What do they taste like?
they're a bit sour. Too many give you a stomach ache, but
This is food for birds. They eat them.
or pigs.
Pigs do.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a crab apple looks like.
Goats will also eat them. Well, goats will eat anything that grows.
Even paper.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but they're browsers, so they eat bushes and all kinds of things. If you have goats and sheep, the grass will stay cut and the bushes will stay trimmed because the goats eat the bushes and the sheep eat the grass.
News once in a while. People used to rent out sheep.
No, the goats. So in New York, in New York City, like in the Bronx, certain places they have these big parks and there's a lot of like hills and brush. So to control the hills and brush, like also along the parkways and stuff, they hire goats. People rent out goats. It's a ganze business. Okay. Now, so I'm going to conclude today a little early, but I'm going to conclude.
Okay.
No, but I'm going to conclude. Wait. With the introduction to the next piece. So the next piece is the question, a thorny question of Kedima b'bracha. What comes first in a bracha? So if you remember, our Mishnah said that one opinion was that you follow what are the 7 species that Israel is praised with. They come first. And the other opinion is that you follow what you like best. So, for example, in our house, we all like mangoes. So according to the second opinion, if we had mangoes and grapes, we'd say the bracha on mangoes. According to the first opinion, since grapes are fruit Israel is praised with, and mangoes are not, you would say the bracha on the grapes. And the Shulchan Aruch also says, some say. In other words, this argument continues to this day. So, however, one thing the Shulchan Aruch does mention, based on the Gemara later, is that where you have so if you have a cut mango and a whole grape, you would definitely say the bracha on the whole grape. More than that, if you had dates that were cut up, which our Eretz Yisrael is praised with, and you had a whole apple, you'd say ha'etz on the apple and exempt the dates, because a whole thing is considered more chashuv, more respectable.
What's wrong with the dates? They're not whole?
Yeah, I'm saying if they're chopped up, any whole fruit gets precedence in a bracha. We're going to see about this later.
Okay.
And the same thing with a loaf of bread. So as a matter of fact, there's an opinion that if it comes Shabbos and you have a whole loaf of bread, and you generally keep Pas Yisrael, but you have a whole loaf of bread that's Pas Palter, that's baked by a non-Jew, which is kosher, but some people don't eat it, and you have a broken piece of bread that's Pas Yisrael, even someone who keeps Pas Yisrael, according to this opinion, on Shabbos should say Hamotzi on the whole bread that's Pas Palter, because out of respect for Shabbos. There is such an opinion.
Or one whole?
Well, we're talking we're talking where there's a hole. You'd like to have 2 holes, but even if you don't have, you're on the road, and
What if you only have one challah?
so you make the bracha on the one. Yeah, because it's still important. We'll see later to make a bracha on a whole loaf. Yeah, I'm saying the truth is even during the week you're supposed to make a bracha on a whole loaf, but most people buy their bread sliced already.
What about a piece of matzah, Rabbi?
Most people buy sliced bread. Yeah, go ahead. What?
A piece of matzah, would that be
It's
considered whole?
considered a whole loaf. A whole matzah is considered a whole loaf. So, for example, if you were going to eat matzah and rye bread at a meal, and you had sliced rye bread and a whole matzah, you'd say the bracha on the matzah first, and exempt the rye bread. And the same thing, if like you're at a breakfast, a bris, let's say, and there's rolls and there's sliced bread, so you would say hamotzi on a roll, and then and exempt the bread. You always say the bracha on the whole thing. But as we'll see later in the Gemara, if you're cutting into the loaf, because it's a big loaf and you're cutting it, it's a difference between what we do Shabbat and what we do during week. There's a whole section in the Gemara about how to bake bread, and there's a whole siman, a whole chapter in Shulchan Aruch, the laws of breaking bread, how you're supposed to eat bread and how you're supposed to say amotzi, and so on. And as we'll see later, the Gemara assumes that you're always going to say Birkat HaMazon on a kos. And I was telling our president that when you have a minion, you're really supposed to bench on a kos. Whether you bench on a kos as an individual or with a mezuman is a question. Yeah. According to some opinions, every time you have a mezuman, you should make a bracha. You should bench on a kos. And some Sfardim have a practice, even when they bench alone, they bench on a kos.
Really?
Yeah, the Gemara assumes that you always say berachah hamazon on a cup of wine.
Wait a minute. And of course, me for the bracha.
Yeah, a cup of wine, like we do on Shalosh Shudas. So there we drink it by Havdalah.
And we say the bracha of the kos.
Not by Shalosh Shudas, because we can't eat until after Havdalah. But normally, like at a wedding, right?
Yeah.
There's 2 cups. The first cup is the regular cup for benching.
Yeah.
At Birkat Hamazon, at a wedding. The first cup is the regular cup for benching. You're supposed to, the Gemara's assumption is that you always say Birkat Hamazon over a cup of wine. There's a debate whether you have to do it as an individual with 3, with 10. But with 10, it's a pretty established halacha that you have to make a bracha on a kos. Well, we should. If we have 10, we should. Okay, so we have to remember to get the wine. Okay. Have a good Shabbos, everyone, and a good day, everyone. Take care.
Rabbi.
Michal, Stephanie, all the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Hi, Rabbi.